What's up, guys? My name's Alec Brill and welcome to Project Gamer. Well, today, this will be the first showing. We are talking about the history of gaming. And with the history of gaming starts about, well, before most of you guys were born. It was about 1950s when everything started going around. And they came out with the first game, which was Tennis for Two. But before we talk about that, I want to talk about my background with gaming. I've been gaming since I've been about 2 years old. I started off on the Super Nintendo, made my way up to the Nintendo 64, and I started out on Nintendo boy. I hadn't played any other console until year 2000 when brought the PlayStation out, and I got that. Played some PlayStation games, got the Xbox later, abandoned both consoles. Got the PlayStation 2, abandoned the Xbox, and Xbox 360 came out, went back to the Xbox 360. But back to the Tennis for Two. Tennis for Two started off in 1957 as a project that people were just messing around with an oscillator and an analog computer, and it came out to where there were they had two controllers, a little line in the middle, and these two controllers, there was a knob and a button. The knob was for you to change the directory or trajectory, the direction of the angle of where the ball went, and then you hit the ball, or this little dot that's just slowly going back and forth over the net. But the thing about that, it was the first game and they didn't know what they were doing quite yet, so you could just keep pounding the button and just have fun with yourself, just making the ball stay up in the air, which was boring. But anyways, that later brought about Pong, which Atari really made successful. The first console that actually you could have at home and play games with was the Magnavox Odyssey, and they had Pong on it originally. The Atari 2600 though, the console that everyone knows about, everyone that thinks is the first console, you know, it made Pong what it is today. Well, no one plays Pong today, but seeing as though Pong was highly successful, many people tried to clone it and make their own copies of it. So that led to this big crash of gaming, where only so many of them survived and were able to keep flourishing. The only reason it stayed up there was because of the newer game by Taito called Space Invaders. Many people enjoyed this game. You had your little tank going back and forth under these barriers. You had these aliens above you. You had to shoot them. A lot of you know Space Invaders. Some of you don't. Try it out. Honestly, it's one of those few retro games that you'll just enjoy. This brought about what we have now, which more of you would consider a more retro game would be like Galaga. I mean, it's pretty much the same concept, but there's no barriers and you're shooting at more aliens, but they had a more unique pattern to them. They would fly in circles, go across the screen, whilst in Space Invaders they were just in this wall of aliens that just slowly went down and got faster as they got closer to you. And eventually you'd have that one where you had to aim it right in front of it or you would die. After games like Galaga, Space Invaders, Pong, after they've been put on the home console, they had arcades set up, and this brought about the golden age of arcade gaming, where you would have a big cabinet like you would see it for, say, an arcade or a movie theater or even sometimes a skating rink. There would be a little section where you put in the coin, you play the game, have fun. Most arcades have some of these games. They've kept them throughout the years. They still work. You'll probably not play them because you'll think the graphics aren't good, but back then those graphics were amazing and you were baffled by, I can play a game now. I don't have to stay home. I don't have to do sports. Ooh, I can play a video game. But the golden age of arcade gaming just went up after the home releases were so great. They figured they could put them out for the public and make more money off them by just people putting in quarters and playing games. After all this, one of the main things I want to focus on is Nintendo. Nintendo started off really started gaming, their gaming career with one of the best handheld systems made at that time, or pretty much one of the first handheld systems made at that time, which was the Game & Watch system, which brought all these really classic games to a little handheld. The screens weren't backlit, so you had to have at least some light so you could see what you were doing. And the predecessor to the Game & Watch, well, or a rival at that point, it wasn't much of a rival because it was a short-lived thing, was Mattel's Microvision, which was pretty much a little stick with at least 4 buttons and a little knob to help you play. I mean, now we have our Nintendo DS's with the touchpad, online gaming on the PSP, PS Vita, whatever you have now. All those amazing HD graphics, just handheld games. No one would ever have thought of that back then. They were just thinking, oh, this is really cool. I'm playing Donkey Kong. A lot of you probably don't remember the original Donkey Kong, which actually brought out one of Nintendo's most popular characters, which was Mario. He was your avatar that you used to go and trump Donkey Kong and save your princess. Well, or the girl. Who knows if she was a princess. But Nintendo came out later with probably they revolutionized all home gaming. They brought out the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES, or in Japan they called it the Famicom. Along with the Nintendo Entertainment System, it was bundled with games like Donkey Kong and Super Mario Bros., which is now still the top-selling franchise of any game. Super Mario Bros. Is one of the most popular games still, because it's a children's game. Anyone can play it. Well, not anyone, but most people can play it. It's a children's game, it's a family game. You could have 2 players playing at the same time, which was kind of a big thing. And Nintendo at that time was a gaming giant. There were no systems that could match up to Nintendo at that time. I mean, yeah, you had the Sega consoles, but the main games for Sega, the only game I can honestly think of, and that's just me, is Sonic. Sonic was Sega's thing. But once you got to Nintendo, you had Metroid, you had Mega Man, Jump and Shoot Man, as a lot of people would just call him. I mean, that's all you did in the game, jump and shoot. Metroid, pretty much Samus Aran, jump and shoot. Jump and shoot girl. But you had Mario, you had Donkey Kong, you had all these games. Speaking of original Nintendo games, Zelda. Zelda was the game for adventure. As difficult as it was, it has the highest nostalgic value of any game I've played. That overworld theme is just, you can't forget it. It's one of those things that get stuck in your head, like the Mario theme, any of those games. You'll have one of those themes stuck in your head after playing it. I mean, who can't forget just running around, not slicing your sword, you're more like stabbing it out of nowhere with Link, which you probably wouldn't even known it was Link. You were probably like, oh, I'm playing as Zelda, because it's the Legend of Zelda, so I'm Zelda. The character's Link. I feel really bad about talking about Mega Man a lot, but Mega Man X came out. That, hands down, I believe that's the best Mega Man game, just because of all its features and just the way the flow of it. I mean, yeah, it has the same kind of formula, you're jumping and shooting, but you had so much more you could do with it. You could dash, you could do all these new things. That is what Mega Man really should have been. Another game which I kind of left out was Mortal Kombat. That was the fighting game along with Street Fighter and all those. But Mortal Kombat was... I mean, America was skeptical on keeping that game because they had never introduced so much gore in a video game. I mean, you hit someone, you see this like animated blood, and everyone's just like, oh my gosh, that's awesome, but gross. And I mean, you had the Nintendo, and the families aren't gonna be like, they're gonna let their kids play it and be like, oh, that's okay, it's just blood. They're gonna be like the angry mom of all things and be like, no, and like throw the freaking cartridge across and break it on the wall, and the kid would be upset a little bit, and then they just go buy him Mario. And they'd be content with that. But games like that, where they kind of introduced gore, that kind of started to become a thing. I mean, not many people would be happy with gore in video games because it was just kind of unheard of. You never really saw blood or anything around anywhere. But Mortal Kombat kind of brought that into everything, and it became popular. I mean, that's not the reason it became popular, but it just kind of added on. Then you get the games like Turok. I mean, Acclaim Studios was probably one of my favorite gaming studios just because of Turok. Turok was you're an Indian and you go and hunt and kill dinosaurs, and what couldn't be fun about that? You run around shooting them with a T-Tech bow that blows up when it hits them, and there would be a lot of blood and gore. I mean, unless you turned it off, which they kind of got to that idea of, well, maybe the parents won't let them play if there's blood and gore, so let's just have an on and off switch for it, so they had something in the options so you could just turn off the gore and it'd be okay for your kids. I mean, you still have the violence of shooting things, but Doom is the first-person shooter, the first-person shooter. Doom, you're a soldier who was deployed to Mars because of some accident gone wrong. You go there, you see like a whole bunch of soldiers on the ground dead, and then you go a little later in, you'll see these demons. You'll see like these zombie soldiers. Doom was the second game for all this blood and gore. You shoot someone, you see blood. You get shot, you see blood. The screen turns red if you die. You go and see your teammates, they're dead with blood. You go through there, you see all these zombies, and you're wondering, how did this happen at all? I mean, I'm on Mars. How can anything like this happen on Mars? You go through, it finds out it's just some really messed up cult thing, and demons had been summoned to Mars and took out the whole station, and then you end up having to go to where they originated from after beating the certain boss on the station. There would be these things just throwing fireballs at you. I mean, you weren't used to that. You weren't used to, like, first-person shooters. No one was used to that yet, because I'm pretty sure if you were like sitting up against the screen like, this is amazing, and then you see something just kind of walk in front of your face, you're gonna freak out and kind of like drop the controller maybe and break your game. Who knows? But you're gonna have fun just, well, I'm not gonna say that shooting is fun, but yeah, dude, pretty much going and shooting all these demons is really fun. It's scary. You would never know what was gonna happen next. There were so many new things brought into it at once, you would just not be ready for it at that point. But all these games, I mean, Doom brought about Wolfenstein, which there was so much controversy about Wolfenstein just because of the involvement of the Nazi party, because that got banned in America actually, and other things just because of World War II and the Nazi party. There was a section where there would be like this giant mech Hitler that you had to kill, but they took that out for Americans because of controversial issues. I mean, if you play any remake of it lately, like on the Xbox now, you can download Doom and all these original games, and they're still the same. They're still the same in every form of it. It's just different controls, kinda, and it's the same gameplay, and it's the original everything. You can see all the stuff. You don't have to buy. Like, I remember about Doom, it was just kind of like a one-shot thing. It was just the station on Mars. But then they realized, oh, people actually really like this, so we're gonna add an ending to this. So you get to this part where it's just like, oh, it looks like you've been trapped down there. You have to fight your way out. And then later they had an expansion to Doom, the second set of levels. And then they just add that till they had at least 4 separate sections, which brought about, like, what people thought about adding more maps to everything. I mean, Zelda originally, it was just one big map. And the thing about games like that, Zelda and Mega Man were bad about this. When you were to move to a different like area of the map, the screen would pause and then transition over to the next screen. Like, I really hate bringing Mega Man into all this, but you go from Mega Man to Mega Man X. Mega Man X, the only time you ever had that screen pause transition is when you were going to a boss. Otherwise, the game was fluid, you were going through it. I mean, Metroid, you shot the little bubble door or jumped up to a certain point. Actually, I'm pretty sure when you jumped up in Metroid, it would be fluid. But if you were to go left or right through a door, it would be that screen transition over. And Mega Man, every certain part of the game, transition over, transition down. Mario was the fluid game where you could just run through. And there'd be no transition unless you were going up to a secret area. But just that fluid motion later on, it just feels better. You don't want to like, you'd be playing and then they'll just be like, oh, hold on, we need to get over here. Okay, there I can go. And then you have monsters right by you. And then you'll go back and sometimes they'll just respawn in that area. After, like say on Zelda, if you killed all the enemies in one area and went to the next one and there were too many enemies for you, so you went back, those enemies you killed earlier are still there. They didn't think about the whole respawn factor at that point. But later on you had Zelda 2, which was pretty much, Zelda 2 brought about the actual RPG thought, because Zelda 2, you started off, you had the awesome overworld theme as usual that got stuck in your head and made you want to play Zelda whenever you heard it. Anyways, it brought you to this point where you're stuck, where you start out right by Princess Zelda's side when she's laying on her, well, it looks like a deathbed, but you probably didn't think it was Zelda. You probably thought the character you're playing as is Zelda, which is wrong. You're Link. Anyways, off of that rant, you go on to you go out of the building and then you have this big map where you're just walking around and you'll see, like, half the time you'll see these black enemies go around you, which if you ran into one of them, it would cause a battle scene and you had to run through, kill these enemies, then leave. But that kind of brought the RPG element out in games. That kind of brought the basis out for RPG games like that. For say like Final Fantasy. I mean, the guy who made it, he was about to give up on gaming. Final Fantasy was going to be his last game. He kind of took those elements from Zelda 2, and it brought about this amazing RPG that everyone played. I mean, RPGs kind of started off with, you know, Dungeons and Dragons. That's where RPGs came from. Everyone played it, and everyone had fun with an RPG. There was a story to it. You just wanted to play it. There was a story, you wanted to beat the story, find out what happened. It's like a book on screen, a movie, but it's a game, and you can interact with it. One of the most famous RPGs would be like Chrono Trigger. Everything you do has a consequence. If you don't do something right, you can end up ruining the game for yourself and not have this awesome ending. Games started to be better when they had secret endings you didn't know about, and you would want to go back and get that ending. That's what made games really popular. I mean, if I think about it, you don't want to make a game like that. That's my opinion, because if people sit there being stuck on that game, trying to do everything for it, they're not going to get your other games. I mean, yeah, they will eventually after they beat it, which might take them forever. I mean, a game like that, I mean, honestly, I got Black Ops 2 recently, and I played it straight on veteran, the hardest difficulty, beat the whole thing through. I'm going back just to get the extra stuff for achievements, because I have a PS3, you know, but I don't play it. I'm an Xbox person, but I went through it, and I didn't know this, but I got the best ending apparently, with everyone being saved, everything working out. But I heard there were like 6 different endings. I mean, that kind of intrigued me. I wanted to see what happened, but due to my curiosity, I didn't want to, and laziness, I didn't want to actually do it, so I kind of went on YouTube and watched them, because I ruined games for myself, and I'm a bad person, but it's just that feel of getting the awesome ending, that feel of accomplishment. I mean, back then there weren't achievements. You played the game for the game. You weren't playing it for, ooh, I gotta have a better score than that guy. Well, that was also a thing, but that was score. This was, I'm not talking about achievements. Like, everyone now is pretty much, I have to have more achievements than this person on this game, or I need to have more trophies. I need to have the platinum trophy and be the best. No, it's, back then, you played the game for the game. You wanted to beat that game. The satisfaction of beating that game was above anything. I mean, yeah, I was really satisfied when I got to see the ending of Black Ops 2 on Veteran. That was awesome. But I pretty much only did on Veteran because, you know, there's an achievement for being on Veteran. And I didn't want to have to go back through the game like 8 times because that's painful. But you always want to play the game for the game. Nintendo has never had achievements or anything like that. Nintendo was pretty much, you play the game, you love the game. If you play the game, you're playing it for it. I mean, Zelda, you played it, and once you beat it, you had this level of satisfaction that was above anything. Play Mega Man in all its Mega Man, you were happy with yourself, and you're just like, yeah, I beat Dr. Willy, yeah, and all this. And you beat just Mario. You're just like, after all that time, I beat Bowser. I got the princess. It's all over. Another Mario game comes out. Darn it. I have to do it again. But, well, I'm pretty sure a lot of people weren't like, darn it. They're probably like, oh my gosh, another Mario game. Yes! But Nintendo, honestly, to me, is the more all-around console, or pretty much the all-around anything. Anyone can play it. Family, I have a 7-year-old sister who plays it. I mean, granted, she does those new games like Just Dance, which aren't appealing to me whatsoever, because I'm not that athletic and don't like dancing. I don't know about you guys, but whatever. I have my sisters who like playing Mario Kart. Mario Kart, by the way, my second favorite racing game of all time. First is Diddy Kong Racing, but I'm sorry if you don't agree with that, because I just kind of like those characters more than Mario's base characters. But anyways, also, what I want to talk about is unlockables for those games. I mean, Nintendo started to get to this point where they're just like, you know what, they've been playing this long enough, we need to make it so they have some more accomplishments and we'll make them want to play the game more, so they'll have a higher replay value. So they started adding in things like unlockables, like extra characters or cheats. Cheats were a big thing. Like, you play any game that's by Konami, but the main game for it was Contra, you know? Anyways, the Konami code was up, down, left, right, A, B, select, start. And you had to do that pretty quick, or else it wouldn't work. I mean, I remember a lot of games I played where I looked online for the cheat codes, because, you know, you had to find out what they were later. But, like theirs, you do the Konami code, you have like 99 lives, you go through, I mean, I have a friend who's actually beaten it without the Konami code. Contra's a really difficult game, by the way. A lot of those games where it's a side-scroller, platformer, those are just, wow. But the main basis of all this, things as simple as a ball going between 2 lines came to be something that we do every day now. I don't know anyone who hasn't played a video game necessarily. I mean, sure, it's not for everyone, because people have different interests, and my main interest lately has been gaming and doing stuff on YouTube and the internet. I mean, that's just me, because those things kind of correlate with each other, and you just gotta have fun with it. But I wanted to end off today's with Nintendo and all its glory at that point, because I don't want to be mean or anything, but once the newest consoles came out, Nintendo was just kind of blown out of the water. Because graphics-wise, I mean, it's not a big deal, because it's not graphics necessarily that makes the game. It's the gameplay and the aspect and the story of it. I mean, I can't play anything that doesn't have like a story to it. I mean, if it doesn't have a story to it, there's no replay value to me. If you just play a game and there's, I mean, even Mortal Kombat has story. Each character had their own story. You beat it, and then it would tell you how they lived after they beat the Mortal Kombat tournament. But, I mean, Mario had a story, which is pretty much a basic story. Hey, your princess got captured. Go get her. And guess how the other games go? Hey, your princess was dumb enough to go get captured again. Go get her again. But I mean, any game, it has to have a great story, you know? You can't play a game and it's just kind of like, go do this. You can't do that. I mean, honestly, I wanted to say Call of Duty was like that, but that'd be a big lie, and all of you would hate me because I know how big of Call of Duty fans everyone is. So later on, I'm going to be explaining like all this about games, like newer consoles and everything. In future episodes, preferably the next one, I'm going to end off this little wrap up of the history of gaming. I mean, today kind of was just saying, oh my gosh, Nintendo was the best. But later on, I'm going to tell you how Nintendo's not necessarily the best anymore. But now I just want to wrap everything up and say I want to thank you guys for watching this, and I hope you watch more, because we're going to have, well, the things you really are interested about, like Call of Duty and all those games in future episodes. So thanks for watching, and this is Alec Brill signing out. See you next time.